Hi everyone, this is episode 14. It's our first roundtable discussion. In this episode we talk to Mark Petrou, co-owner of Petrou Brothers in Chatteris, and Andrew Crook, the NFFF president. We go through all of the questions that were sent in. So we hope you like the answers, and if you don't, let us know why. But, I think you'll like it, and this is the first of many. So any feedback, please send it back. So just a short intro for today because this is a pretty long podcast. Thank you. Thank you for coming today, Mark, Andrew. I've just pointed at you in the wrong direction there. So guys, this is the first roundtable discussion. We hopefully can have many of these, so I just want to thank you ahead and say thanks for your time because everyone knows you're busy, especially Andrew and Mark. I'm just sit here and listen to you guys.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm me.
And so we've got a load of questions that were sent in. About 20, give or take. Some of them might be quite similar, so we'll just skip over those if they are. And then I've got about another 20 that came, so it's about 40, 50 that came in. Some were irrelevant, but some of them are just directed to me, so I'll answer those later on. But let's see how we get on. So the first question I have is from Grace Garner, and she asks, Stelios, are you going to be doing more episodes with more than one person? She's pretty much hit the nail on the head because this is what we're doing for this one. And we do hope to do others. So if anybody thinks of two either opposing people or agreeing people, would like to talk to them and have a good conversation, I think that it would make sense. So I know you guys are probably going to come up with some suggestions after this now. You're already thinking, I can see it in your faces. So question number 2, but question number 1 on your questions is from Kevin Newey. A good few years ago, Mark Petrou championed the need for an advertising fund to promote fish and chips. We all agree that it was a great idea. Should this be picked up again? And how could the industry make this happen? So I think it's only fair to throw this one over to Mark. Start there.
Great. First of all, we're in a kind of a culture now where everybody looks at why things won't work rather than how can we get the job done. And if you ever phone up for a tradesman or whatever to come around and fix something, the first thing they do is they suck through their teeth. They go, oh, this isn't right, that isn't right. And I'm going to do the same thing. I think if we can all agree that creating a fund that people pay into to promote fish and chips is a good idea, that's a good place to start. And but what inevitably happens is some people won't contribute to it, and then the people that do contribute to it think that it's unfair that other people benefit from it. And I think I don't really want to go into all that because that is the attitude that we're living in today, and I really want to focus on how it can work, not why it won't. The thing that needs to be clearly agreed and identified is what are we promoting, and that has to be the umbrella brand of fish and chips, the thing that covers the whole industry, that my brand and Andrew's brand and Mr. Chips or Captain Fish or whatever your brand is. We all benefit from the idea that fish and chips is a superb product. So if we can agree what the right messages should be, and that it should be for promoting fish and chips, not for promoting your brand, then that's a good place to start. The next thing you need to do is look at who runs it. And for me, the answer to that is clear. It has to be the National Federation of Fish Friers. Nobody else is better placed, has the infrastructure, the respect and the ability to do the job and to do the job well. the third thing then is, how do we create the revenue stream, and what should everybody contribute? And I think that's when things really start to get sticky. So I think it could be picked up again as an idea, and the industry could make it happen, but I don't have a magic pill, and I don't know what the solutions to that are. And I know Andrew will contribute something to this in a sec. What I will say is that when I came up with the idea, I got so many things wrong when I tried to pitch it. I tried to use my year as top chip champ.
Your winning year, that is.
My winning year, to try and not just motivate, but to get everybody moving in the same direction. And I had some success with that. I think the 2010 celebration of fish and chips being 150 years old, was it 150? Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Was a really powerful thing, and that was an idea of mine that the federation embraced, and they coordinated it, and with some support from some other top fries. Richard Ord was really instrumental in that. We managed to do some really good things in 2010 with the 150-year celebration, and we've got an opportunity to do it next year with 160 years.
Yeah.
And again, I think with some momentum and social media being a much bigger thing now than it was then, there are some really great opportunities. Whether or not there will ever be a fund that people can contribute to, I'm not sure. But
Andrew, your thoughts?
I think there should be one. I agree with everything you've said. I think, again, it comes down to where the revenue comes from, and I think the only way that can be achieved is taxing it or levying at source. So something that we all use, so batter or sausage, but it has to be something that every company signs up to. So you couldn't just have one company say, "Oh yeah, we'll agree with that," and then somebody else not do it. So
sorry, Andrew, if you just get a bit closer to the mic. Sorry, mate. That's all right. It's all good. It's all carry on. It's fine.
I'm relaxed and leaning
back.
back.
You are very relaxed. He's very relaxed. We're a bit stressed and tense. And he's so used to doing all these radio interviews, isn't he?
I've got a lot of tension in there.
So go on, carry on. Sorry.
But yeah, I mean, I think if we can get over that obstacle, I think it would be a great thing. John Rutherford tried. They were talking about setting up a committee which would be Neorder, FASFA, Seafish would be involved, and the NFFF, and just trying to raise some money and all work together. I think we're in a good place at the moment as an industry. I think everyone can get on. I think everyone's working well together on initiatives, but I think we're a bit of a way off setting this fund up, and I agree with you. It's a difficult thing to get right, isn't it? It's a difficult thing to find the money from. So
my thoughts are slightly different, but also very similar. So I think that the original inception that Kevin was talking about, which is what Mark set up, was all about TV. And I think I would ditch that effort now. TV
Agreed.
is, there's no point. And I think that actually I would push it completely on social media. And
Agreed.
actually in year one, I would only push it on Facebook, just to get something going. And then you'd set up, like the NFFF, as Mark said, could set up like a crowd fund. Doesn't even have to be just members. It can be everybody. Andrew could do a little video saying, this is the goal. It's all about promoting fish and chips. It's not about promoting X fish and chip shop, as Mark said. So then I think the buy-in could be so much lower. It could be, I want to donate 15 quid, I want to donate 50, I want to donate 100, I want to donate more later on, I want to see how it's going, and that's something that you could get going pretty fast. Like Mark said that was it next year, did you say it's 160 years?
That's right.
You could probably start that now. You could probably start,
I'm going to talk to Mark about it after, so
I'm glad I brought you together. So I think that there's an element of people can just throw some money in a pot. If I put all of my Starbucks money aside for this, that's probably like £20 a week. Yeah. So, but you see what I mean? The buying level is so much lower.
To be honest, though, with National Fish and Chip Day, what Neorder have achieved, it's it started off grassroots. It's just getting the shops just to celebrate fish and chips, and look how that's taken off. And
exactly. And I don't think we can ever have too many. Marketing opportunities. I think we need to be hitting it from every single angle, and I think it's a low buy-in, and I think it shows members and non-members what you guys are doing.
I think also everybody's got ideas. Everybody's got their own thoughts on how they would want to promote fish and chips. And I think the good thing about social media is you can set up a closed group and you can invite everybody to volunteer what they think the right message is.
Yeah.
Because when you're getting the opinions of however many hundreds or thousands of Friers, nothing's going to be missed. You're going to be able to pick all the pearls out very, very easily. And I think if it started off as a voluntary thing where you can contribute whatever you can afford, then you're going to see a fund that will grow.
Yeah.
And whatever your budget is, you can make it go a really long way on social media. Yeah. The final thing I will say is that it's becoming easier to measure how your reach is, and how you're penetrating your audience as well. So I think with TV and the older methods of targeted marketing, you're not really you're not really able to measure it, but you are with social media. So I think it's it's a good opportunity now.
I think with television, I think you have to get an agency on board and then another agency on board. But it's cost after cost after cost, and that's great for like big organisations like Procter and Gamble, McDonald's, and so on. That's fine. But if you really want to start something from the ground level, I think that's probably this sort of campaign that we're talking about is great. So should we move on to the next question,
please?
So next question, Alistair Horrobin. Does the NFFF Quality Award increase trade? So this question, I'm going to pass over to you first, Andrew.
It might be me. Yeah. If it's used correctly. For me, the Quality Award is, the important bit of it is the standard, and we've got to maintain that standard. So we took it over because once that standard's gone, we've lost it forever. It's now the legally accepted best practice for running a fish and chip shop. We've got primary authority in England, should have it in Wales soon as well. I think Scotland's a different kettle of fish, but it's important we maintain that standard. It's the only thing you can measure a fish and chip shop against. I think the awards, the in-shop visit is all based on the Quality Award. The Quality Award needs to exist. Does it improve business, improve staff morale? So when you're going through the process, your staff are more energised. After you've got the Quality Award, it's then down to you to promote it. We'll do a little bit, we'll send some press releases out to your local papers, but it's down to the shops to make the most of it. And the ones that see the greatest increase in business are the ones that work hard on it. It's just like everything else. You've got the National Fish and Chip Awards for Top 50. It's what you do with it. So I'd say yes, as long as you handle it right.
Good answer.
Yeah, I'd back that up by saying that when the Quality Award first came out many years ago, maybe the average Joe on the street, the person that would benefit from you reaching that standard, wasn't really aware of it. But as more and more shops have attained the award, and it's started to become more and more well known, I know there are customers that will actively seek out a shop that has the award, and that's only going to get stronger the more people that do it, and it's a really good thing to put your business through. It's almost like giving it an annual MOT. Quite often in business, we're all very good at the things that we do, but we're absolutely rubbish at the things we don't do, which might sound like a daft thing to say, but something like the Quality Award gives a fresh pair of eyes and somebody who's trained to appraise your business from a completely different standpoint. So, of course, if you're raising standards and your customers are aware that you're achieving this award, and they're also aware of the benefits of the award, of course it's going to add business to your turnover. It's not a case of can you afford to get it, it's can you afford not to, really, isn't it?
And we're trying to make it more inclusive, so it's not about somebody saying, oh, you've failed, you're not as good as me. Yeah. It's about, this probably needs a bit of attention, send us photographs and we'll approve it, common sense.
So my thought on the matter, again, is pretty similar. I'm not far off from that. In basic form, if you gain one more customer, then you've got more customers. Simple. You never had that customer before. But again, I think it's like what you said, Andrew. I think if you're not pushing it, no one's going to deliver customers to your door. And I think that's the thing. You've got to really push the hell out of it. The only one thing I would say, Mark touched on it a little bit, and I think I've brought it up in meetings before, is that I really see value and benefit from it being called like an NFF quality audit as opposed to award. I know many shops that won't do it because they feel like they're paying for an award. However, they don't mind an MOT as such on the business. A fresh pair of eyes, someone showing them where they may be going wrong. Other than that, I think that I think lifting standards is always generally going to increase business, but that's the only thing I would say.
We agree in the name change, to be honest. I think it's something that should happen. We were just going through primary authority last year, so we didn't want to change anything, but it's something that's on the agenda to do.
Exactly. It's not like everything's just going to fall into place overnight. You need to plan these things,
I think the award helps you to promote it.
I think that's right as well. So that's the other downside. If you get rid of the word award, then that's sort of like you lose there a little bit. But I think, I think Mark's made a very good point there. So that sort of negates mine a little bit. But this is but these are the challenges that you guys are faced with every day, isn't it? So, the fact is that, I've just gave a fairly rational proposal. Everyone probably agrees with it. And Mark's just said, well, actually, it's going to make it harder to promote. And it's completely right. So you need a situation where that doesn't apply.
This is why we can't rush into things.
Yeah,
You've got to,
exactly.
We changed the window sticker from a round one to a square one, and we have complaints about that. And we're just trying to modernise and just make things better. But you've got to take little steps.
So I do have a follow-up question to that, and it's not from it is from someone, but he goes, "Can you leave my name out of it?" I was like, "Yeah, whatever." It doesn't matter.
Not Drummond, is it?
No, no, it's not. No, he doesn't listen to these, so we're safe. We can say whatever we want. So, do you think that regional directors should be able to enter the award, more specifically the quality award? However, the other awards too. So I'll just sort of throw in my 2 pence here. I don't really see an issue, if I'm completely honest, for the quality award anyway. I think that if the regional directors didn't have the quality award, that would also then make people ask, can't be that good then, can it?
Yeah.
So maybe not so much a regional director, but if someone's on the steering committee of the big awards, the Seafish Awards, then maybe you could argue they know too much about it.
Yeah.
I don't know enough about that to answer. So that's where I sort of stand. I don't really see an issue. So, Mark?
Well, I might have done a bit of judging in my time, and I can tell you categorically that if you're a judge, you can't enter. And if you do enter, you're not allowed to be a judge.
So that's for the Seafish Awards.
Yeah. When it comes to something like an audit stroke award, because I'm trying to be diplomatic,
it's still an award at the moment. Yeah.
And you're in your own business. Why the heck shouldn't you? It makes no sense whatsoever to not be able to do it. At the end of the day, if you can't achieve it in your own shop, you shouldn't be assessing other people. And I think if you've got your own business to run and your own books to balance, and you want to know that you're doing the best job that you can, you should. It shouldn't be you that puts you through it.
Yeah.
Somebody else should come and put you through it.
Yeah.
But of course you should have it.
Yeah.
It's nonsense any other way. But in terms of judging, if you're entering, you're not judging. It's as simple as that. And in fact, it goes beyond that. If you're judging and you know the person with the shop, you have to declare it. And there have been times in the past, years ago, in fact, where there was a conflict of interest for me. And so what I did was I announced myself to the shop that didn't know me, in case when I went to judge the shop that did know me, if they recognised me, they wouldn't have an unfair advantage.
You negated the advantage. Yeah.
Exactly. So, every judge that I've ever met takes the judging extremely seriously and does it with real integrity. Nobody gets a leg up. From my experience, I've never known anyone to get a leg up. It just doesn't. Sorry?
Made me smile when you said that.
It just doesn't happen.
I'm just too immature. Sorry.
I've judged people that I've known 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
And they've not recognised me when I've gone in their shop because I'm a master of disguise.
Well, in fairness, when he's been into my shop visiting, people thought I was standing out the front. So, Andrew, what's your thoughts on that, mate?
Well, I think there's 2 issues. The quality award, yes, of course, everyone should have that standard. You're measuring your business against best practice, so that's one issue. I think with the national awards, I think the judging process is really fair. And
that's fair for people that don't understand fair.
But it's the perception of the industry that something would be corrupt if somebody was in it. So I've never entered the awards because of my dad's position and my position. I didn't think it'd be right if I won an award, which I probably wouldn't do. But if I won an award, people could criticise the awards on the back of it. Says it's just not right.
Yeah.
And I agree again with the steering group. To say that NFF directors can't enter the awards, that would probably mean it'd be difficult to recruit board members because quite a few of them are active shops. We want current people that really know the industry. For me, that's really important. So,
and to be fair, you want to, from the NFF point, you want to recruit people at the top of their game,
Exactly.
not just people with spare time, because I can find lots of those. But you do want people that are active and pushing and doing a good job at their shops as well, don't you? Really.
Well, that's it. And we've got a great board now. So.
Yeah.
No, we've had some great people before as well, like Mike, but I think we've got a good team, and then I think if we couldn't recruit people that are entering awards, we'd suffer.
It is a shame we've got no cameras here right now. we're every few minutes we all do like a different face, and it's like I think it would be really good if people saw that context.
There's so much love in this room.
Well, and to be fair, and I think we'll all agree that we've all gone through a lot of crap to get to this point. I think a lot of people don't realise that we've all been in the trade. Well, you two a lot longer than me. Well, actually, I don't know. Maybe all equally as long, but I think we've all been at different sides of the table, and even in this conversation, we might be, but we've all grown up through it. So I think I said to you, Andrew, that we haven't always been on the right side, and nor have you and Mark, and nor have me and Mark, and it just. But I think we're all grown ups, and
there's respect there, isn't there?
That's the difference.
I haven't grown up. I've just grown old.
I've just grown outwards.
I've just grown old.
So, next question. I think we've finished that one on a high note. Simon Walsh, do you think the massive increase in people seeking vegetarian/vegan options is something that industry really needs to embrace? So, I can probably go first on this one. So, I think that, if I'm honest, I think that every business needs to try and serve the 1%. At the end of the day, we always need to try and get that extra dollar from someone. However, I do also think that we should never sacrifice the majority for the sake of the minority, and I do see that sometimes. I see it a lot in a lot of restaurants and fish and chip shops, and I think that you've got to be careful that you don't ruin the main part of what you do. The only downside I think with the vegan movement is that I'm seeing is a lot of processed food that isn't particularly very good for you. And that's hidden under the label vegan. So I would say that if you are going to do vegan food, do it well, do it fresh, wholesome, nice. Don't just put another box of something in the freezer and tie up your cash flow, because I think that's the worst thing, in my opinion. So that's where I stand on it. It's not a no, it's just do it right and don't offend the rest of everyone else, because you do see a lot of those vegan options are they're more laborious, they take time to get right. So if you're going to do that and you're not spending time cutting your fish or making sure that your steak's good if you're a steak restaurant, then you're really going to offend people, I think. So Mark's got his hand up like a class.
Can I go first on this, Andrew? So I've got a few issues here. Fish and chips as an industry, we're a network of independent retailers. We're a celebration of differences. You'll hear some of my old cliches coming out here because I feel quite strongly about it. Each site up and down the land is tailored to the needs of its own communities. And success doesn't come from selling what you want to sell, it comes from selling what people want to buy. In the 70s and 80s, we lost a generation of customers to big chains, burger chains. I call them the burger generation. And over the years, some shops have diversified and adapted their menus to bring new customers in. But I think the high street is changing again. And I think that there are some people that are making the mistake of diluting what they're doing to chase that 1% and getting it wrong. Mm-hmm. I think there are other people that have decided to go after that customer and are getting it right. So the answer to the question, quite simply, is you've got to know your own business and you've got to just make a clear decision. And if you are going to go for it, do it well, but be careful, because I happen to think that if you want to grow your customer base, you're much better off looking at all the customers you've got coming into your shop now and trying to find more of them, because it's much easier and much more sustainable to grow a business by chasing more of the customers you're already making happy than going out to find a new customer, a different type of customer. it's easy for me to say that because I fry in beef dripping anyway. So, you know, I'm the decision for me was quite easy. In my shop, you can have mushy peas, or I mean, I do other things as well. I do cater for vegans, and I have separate fryers, but I don't do that. I'm not doing it because it's a fad, because it's a phase, because I want to grow my customer base. I do it because I made the choice before it was even fashionable. I've been doing gluten-free fish and chips for a long time, and I've got a huge following. Yeah. But I don't have a gluten-free day. My choice is it's available all the time. So I don't think I've answered it. I've probably muddied the water, but what I will say is I don't think it's a black and white question that you can give a straight answer to. What I would say is if you make the decision to do it, you've got to commit to it and you've got to do it well. Just
before Andrew throws in, I think the one word I want to address is the fad bit. If you're going to do it, build a long-term strategy around it and do it properly.
Exactly.
If you do it for 2 months and then bugger off, what's the point? And then on that note, sometimes some vegan customers just won't be happy.
While you're doing that, I mean, it doesn't just complicate your menu, it adds costs in other places as well. There's waste, there's labour, and what you're actually doing is you're diluting your brand and you're actually taking your eye off the big ball.
Yeah.
For what may not be fruitful at all. You know, it's a risk.
What's your thoughts, Andrew?
Well, I'm back in the same position I was a few months ago. I was asked to do an interview on the vegan fish and chip shop in London, and I thought, what am I going to talk to somebody about for 20 minutes? But yeah, for some places it does work, and but I agree with what Mark said and what you said. You've got to do it right. I don't think a vegan fish and chip shop in my area would be successful. In London, that'll work. Offering vegan products, yes, it's great to try and look after. It's a bit like gluten-free. You've got the one customer in the family, one person in the family that's celiac or choosing not to eat gluten, and that determines where the family eat. But I don't think in my shop I could do it safely. I don't think it'd be the right thing for me to do. I'd increase the cost. I'd have to have a pan just for gluten, just for vegan, and it just gets really, really complicated. And it's just something. You're never
going to retire off it, are you?
No, that's it. But there's a lot of shops getting a lot of PR on the back of it, so it's a good thing. It depends where you are. I know Simpsons did it, and I know quite a few other shops. Halloumi's a big thing at the moment.
Don't get me started on halloumi. We're going to get to that later.
Go on, was you going to
finish? As I say, it's just about getting it right. And I agree with Mark. Concentrate on your core business, do it well.
Yeah, and I do think we'll probably touch on it later on as we go down the list, but I think that we're starting to see a trend where fish and chip shops that are becoming more artisanal, I'm not sure if that's the right word, but really getting back to basics, doing great fish and chips, they're starting to see a long-term shift, a benefit that is.
I agree. Like I said, in the 70s and 80s, we had to start offering burgers to try and win the burger generation back. Now we're at a point where it's time to start specialising and concentrating. If somebody said to me, I'm thinking about adding grilled fish to my menu, I'd be more on board with the idea as a blanket strategy than I would vegetarianism, veganism, gluten-free, or anything like that. I think, I think if you're a fish and chip shop now, maybe if you want more customers, look for more fish and chip customers. Don't look for vegetarians.
Totally agree.
Fantastic. So, guys, next question is actually a bit of a joint question. So it's David Nicolau and Alistair Horrobin. Is there anything being done by the supply chain to cut down on plastics in packaging, mostly blue fish wrapping, which ends up in the bin? And I shudder to think about how many plastic bags I've thrown away around sausages. We seem to be doing our bit, but the supply chain doesn't seem to innovate. Any thoughts? So that was more David Nicolau's question. The next part of that was Alistair Horrobin. Should our industry care where others don't care? And I've rephrased that because Alistair didn't write it like that. So my thought is, all right, so I have heard in the pipeline that there is someone pushing the frozen at sea boats to change the wrapping. I don't know what the timeline is there. Might be probably next year, but he told me literally a month ago. Have you got an update on that, Andrew?
I went to the FASFA meeting before the awards, on the morning of the awards. They are working towards it. I think with all this packaging thing, Blue Planet caught everybody out. It propelled things a lot faster than anyone expected. I know the industry is working towards it, but things take time, and I believe the packaging they've got isn't as robust. It's more expensive.
Okay.
But the question about other industries not caring, we're all going to care because we're going to face more charges.
I think my thought on that is, and I get where Alistair's coming from on that, like, you know, why should we care when nobody else doesn't? Well, if everyone had that mentality, then nothing would ever get done, would it? So I get that, but I think it's worth noting that 95% of all the plastic waste in the sea comes from 10 rivers, mostly all in Asia. Yeah, so it's not like it's happening here in the UK. We're generally quite responsible. I think one thing I'd like to see is sort of recyclers, and whether it's councils or private recyclers, start doing something with used packaging, because at the moment they're not. And I think that's the hang up here, is that anything that's had food in it can't go into the waste, and well, actually certain recycled waste. It's a no-brainer that they could use that for something, or do something with it, or at least get rid of it better than what we could. So I think that's one problem that I see. And also, I don't think, and I've said this before in other podcasts, that some packaging in our industry is sold as bio, but just isn't fit for purpose because it can't be recycled, and it can't be composted, because it's had food in it. Yeah. So I think there is a problem there. And, you know, I went to a trade show in London last year now, and, you know, the guy admitted it. He goes, yeah, it is biodegradable under the right conditions. I'm like, well, so it's not biodegradable. And he was like, yeah, but it is. And I was like, yeah, but our customers don't biodegrade like that. So, yeah. So, Mark, your thoughts?
Well, there's a couple of issues. There always is. I think we have to decide what's important. And at the end of the day, it's always going to come down to the bottom line. Yeah. There are solutions. I know of some companies that offer alternative ways of packaging sausages and fish and everything in containers that get circulated back round. But there's a cost involved. And if you consider it an important part of, you know, the way you want to run your business, then you'll pay the extra money and you'll recycle stuff around, and it can be eliminated, but it's pricey, and it's only going to get cheaper the more and more people use it. So I do think that the industries out there are offering solutions, but nobody really wants to pay it.
Yeah.
And again, the next point I want to make is it comes down to what translates over the counter, because right now it's a big issue, and people are very aware. Consumers are aware, and consumers are making an effort. Crikey, I've just had a week's holiday in Devon, and if you'd have said to me you're not allowed to leave the beach till you find 3 bits of plastic, I'd still be there. You know, the beaches were spotlessly clean, and I think consumers are taking their rubbish home, and there's been a shift. So you know, if you want to impress your customers, that's one thing, but that comes at a price. It's not just about doing it for show. You have to commit to it again, and accept that there's a cost involved. And I think you've got to tell your customers about it and say, we are doing this so that we reduce the amount of plastic that's being used out the back of the shop where you don't see. But that means every sausage has to go up 5p. And unfortunately, the people that don't have a moral compass, who don't want to project that message to their customers, they're going to be cheaper than you.
Yeah.
And you know, you have to make that decision. Am I going to do it? And if you do, I don't want to say do too late. If you do it, you've got to tell your customers, because if you don't tell, you won't sell. So make a decision, commit to it for the right reasons. And
market it well.
Market it well and pass it on.
It depends where you are as well. I mean, my customers care about things like that. So
my customers care about price.
Yeah. Well, you've got a bit of both, haven't you?
So, you know, again, there's no right or wrong answer. No. But if you do it, make sure you communicate it and justify why you've got to be dearer.
But as an industry, I think we've always led the way in sustainability, and I think this is something else that we need to lead the way on, but I think we need to get the advice from government first, and I just don't think it's there yet. The latest I've heard, we're going to face more waste charges. They're keen for us to pick up the bill of recycling, which isn't a bad thing, because everyone will have it.
Why don't they let us go back to using newspaper then? Because we were recycling 150 years ago.
That's a good point.
Let us go back to using newspaper. At the end of the day, as an industry, we've always done the right thing, but we've always been really poor at communicating it. And that really wasn't a dig at the Fed, because I'm a real Fed man. That it's just, we need to get behind the Federation so the Federation can put the right messages out, because we have been responsibly sourcing for decades.
Yeah.
We have been recycling for centuries. So we do all the right things. We just don't shout about it enough.
I think we're getting better at that. As an industry, I think everybody's, running a shop, you've got to be your own HR, you've got to be your own marketing team. And I think people are learning off each other, which is the important thing. Social media, everyone talks, shares ideas, and that's got to be the way forward for us.
Agree.
So, next question. This is again another joint question. Well, they didn't ask it together, just I've bundled them. So this is Danny Coomey / Craig Buckley. Where do you see the fish and chip industry going over the next few years? Who wants to start? You both just look at
I'll go first. I'll go first. Well, first of all, Danny Coomey's not interested in anything I've got to say.
I'm sure he is.
But I'm going to speak anyway. Danny, hope you're well. Where's it going? Well, I think it's not really where is fish and chips going. First of all, you've got to say where is the hot food retail industry going. Let's split the generations into three, shall we? There's a generation of people that still like to come up and queue and have their takeaway, and if they could, they'd still have it wrapped in newspaper. But they are the aging, let's call them the aging or dying generation, the grey pound, and they like their fish and chips the way they like their fish and chips, and you'll never change them. They didn't get on the technology bus. They wouldn't know an email. That they haven't got a smartphone. They're frustrated that their phone hasn't even got a cable connected to it anymore. But they're important because they remember the good old days of fish and chips. Then you've got the generation in the middle that they're kind of in between. They will place a phone order. They will drive up and collect it, and they're choosing what their kids are eating as well, and they're really important too. And then you've got this new generation that they want to swipe with their finger, they want to place their order, they don't want to speak to you, they want to pay for it there and then, and they want to get off the sofa when you're knocking on the door with it. And if in business you're not catering for all those three, I think that's where you're missing out. I know shops that do superb fish and chips that are scratching their heads wondering where their customers are, simply because they're not catering for those three generations. And I know shops that do rubbish fish and chips that are queued out the door because people are ordering on their apps, people are ordering by phoning up, people are coming in and queuing, and they're having it away. And I think this shift is very recent. Let's talk about cashless. Within 2 or 3 years, if you're not taking contactless or all the other electronic ways of paying, because you like to have a little bit of cash, you got to wake up and smell the coffee.
Well, just to interject for 1 second, a customer texted me last night, and I'm only saying this is relevant. Texted me last night, and he said his business hit a point where it's 75% cards.
Yeah,
and he was happy about that. So he was happy. Yeah. So
as you know, my last shop, because I've sold them all apart from one. My last shop's takeaway only, and I'm considering closing the takeaway. Simply because I think I can sell more product out the back of my shop through an app-based service and increase my profit margin by putting tables and chairs in the front of the shop and having people come in and eat with a knife and fork, because pubs are charging 3 times what I can get for a meal.
I don't want to be facetious, but it's Chatteris. They probably won't use a knife and fork.
Well, I'm not going to respond to that. I'm going to wink at you because just in case anyone from Chatteris ever listens to this. But no, you're quite right. The fact of the matter is, the high street isn't dead, but it's evolving at an incredible rate, and you can bury your head in the sand and wonder where your customers are going. You can blame poor weather, bank holiday weekend. You can blame whatever reason you like, but if your numbers are falling on a week-by-week basis, those customers are still out there. In fact, there's more customers now than there ever were. You can always blame someone else, but you've got to go around the other side of the counter and put yourself into your customer's position and ask yourself, why are my customers not using me? And it won't be price. You'll think it's price. It's not price, because pubs will charge 3 times as much for your product and it'll be worse than yours.
The problem is some pubs charge less. If you look at like a Wetherspoons, for argument's sake, and I think that is at the forefront of someone's mind sometimes. I think, and it's an easy conclusion to make sometimes.
Mr. Tesco doesn't worry about when he puts his prices up. If beans have to go up, do you know what he does? He puts spaghetti at the end of the aisle on special, and then you don't notice that beans have gone up. The way that we put our menus together now, we're guilty of undercutting the thing we want to sell with cheaper alternatives. It's a mistake. Don't sell a cheap sausage. Sell a quality sausage and have a better margin in that than you have in your fish and chips. So if you do sell something for less, your margin, you're actually better off. It's a time of opportunity and challenges, but they're not all bad challenges. And I've said this before. At the end of the day, I'm sure there are shops out there that do so many things well, but it's the things that you don't do that hurts you the most.
Yeah. Andrew, what do you think of this period of like uncertainty, the future?
I think what Mike said is correct. We've got to look at how people are shopping, and people. I agree. There's customers that will always come in your shop. There's always people that will go the traditional route, but there's more and more people that just want to order on the phone, and they don't want to communicate with anybody. The next generation, they don't have communication skills.
It's cheaper for us to trade that way as well.
And having no cash, who wants money knock around the house? It's much better.
I think many would.
Yeah, well, yeah.
My dad does.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind more of it, but I do think it's important that shops realise it's going to dry up, and I think you've got to adapt your business to trade the way that future generations are going to trade. Yeah. And it's not going to be cash, it's not going to be people coming in the shop. I think you're right.
I think this next 5 to 10 years is where people can bolster that effort to be ready for it. Because don't in 10 years' time hang in there and be like, oh, people keep coming in and saying they can't pay by card. Well, you see those comments now.
It's not expensive to adapt either. It's just about,
But it's cheaper now, isn't it? But I think if you've got a sign outside your shop saying cash only, you might well have a sign saying inspect me.
Well, I think the common misconception is to some degree is that McDonald's, for example, have moved over to this technology system because it's cheaper. I think that to some degree is probably, but the costs up front are dearer. They have to rebuild the restaurant. They have to employ a new system out the back where they actually have 3 times more staff cooking food than what they do, which is serving now. And, they've got table service. I was chatting to a franchisee who's got 14 or 15 sites, and she said the cost to changing over to the screens is astronomical because now they need people that are constantly, making it fresh. And also customizing is another thing. But yeah, I think you're right. I think you're both right. I think get ready for the future, and follow what the big chains are doing because they're already sort of doing it. I don't mean follow them completely, but take the good bits out of that. I think.
Are we allowed to name other shops and stuff that?
I guess so. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Well, some competition near to where Andrew's shop is, Nana Jan's. It's not in the best location, shall we say?
Oh, it's Lancashire, isn't it?
Shut up, you. I'm going to go everybody today, you.
Their app is superb.
Yeah.
They won the marketing award this year, right. And I'm basing my app around what they've done because I think it's that good. And
I live near the shop, and the car's always flying.
You're always seeing their branded vehicle about. Yeah. I don't know their numbers, and if I did, it wouldn't be fair for me to say.
No, of course, no.
But it's I know that the company that they use, and I'm sure they'd disclose it, is very reasonable. And you get to retain all of the information. You get to retain all of the customer details. You get to retain all of the money. There's no monthly charge for using this system. And you can control it. You can send out messages to your customers whenever you want.
I think that's
superb.
Thing. That's a big thing.
I think you probably need both because I think the big aggregators, as they call themselves, but the platforms, the marketing tools, they'll get customers to you, but then you need to retain those customers for yourself. You don't want them going back on and trying somewhere else. You want those customers for your shop.
I think to some degree, what people's biggest gripe is with the like of those aggregators is that
it's like having a silent partner, isn't it?
Yeah, not only are they taking that margin, but if for whatever reason they decide they don't like you, they shut down your account, or they would then start trying to find another shop in the local area to go against you, essentially. Whereas I think what Mark's saying is that if I look for years, this guy in our industry, who's out of the industry now, but Giovanni Fionda from Atlantic, he always said, "I will never use another company. I want to own my customer." And I think, true to the word, he had a very busy shop back then.
Did he just?
And he said, "I want to own that customer." And I think that's a really important thing that we should all be trying to get to the bottom of that, because if once you put a middleman in with your customer, I think do you trust that middleman or woman? So
that's what I liked about Nana Jones is all their customers are theirs, and they market it extremely well, and it's cheap. I mean, you're looking at £30 a week, I think.
No, that's not a lot at all. So, next question, guys, is from it's not. I don't know if it's still relevant, but I think it's still an issue. So, Pete Fraser, with the impending shortage of sunflower oil, is this temporary or long term? Have lots of chip shops moved across to something else because of the shortage, or is the cause due to wider reasons? Well, Andrew, you were on this product, I think, weren't you?
I was. I've moved back to palm oil. And the reason I moved back, this is probably leads on to another issue. A lot of people move from palm oil, again, because customers are demanding that reduced palm oil that we use. They're all worried about orangutans and rainforest deforestation. And I attended a workshop at Parliament, and it was all about palm oil and sustainable palm. And they convinced me to move back. I think there's a lot of shops moved on to this product for that reason. It is a great product. Hale Lake sunflower oil is a great product. But I decided that I had to make a stand and go back to palm oil. And I think there's a lot of people jumped ship and created more demand for Hale Lake sunflower oil. And I think we need to, I don't know, I think we've probably desired more palm oil, more sunflower oil than's available at the moment. I think the crop's been quite poor. From what I've heard, so I think people are going to have to switch on something else for now.
I think it has been a poor crop, and I think I'm hearing that also the farmers weren't happy with getting such a low price for it, and I think that's also going to be a driver for a higher price. And I think you'll probably see it come back, and it'll probably be closer to groundnut price, if I'm honest. And I think that's why they're probably bringing out the blend or the rapeseed High Lake to sit under it. And to be fair, if it's as long life as groundnut, or actually a lot of people have told me better life, and then it should be priced accordingly. I
think oil kind of goes to its lowest common denominator. I think if you do a blend, I think it probably lasts as well as the lowest oil that's in there. So
of course. Mark, any thoughts?
I haven't got much to add to it. I understand the reason why there's a shortage, and it's that the sunflower crop wasn't good enough to refine for food use. It was a poor crop.
Never usually stops vegetable oil producers, to be honest.
I'm glad you said that.
Well, do you know what? Most of what I learnt about veg oil, I learnt from your previous podcast, which I thought was amazing, really insightful. I think we're going to see more and more challenges, not just with veg oil. I mean, you mark my words, fish is going to get really tight up until September. Yeah. It's going to get really...
Well, I've heard that. Yeah.
And, I think it's there's 9 billion of us. There's only so much to go around. And, it's a concern. But, like I said, we've got to protect our margins. We've got to make the right choices for the right reasons.
I know it sounds brutal, but going back to palm oil for a second, I was told on good authority, and as bad as this sounds, is that the damage has been done, and now it doesn't happen no more. That it's actually better now, as in for the environment and so on. That the trees that now yield 3 times more than the old trees, hence why they were cut down. And I get the orangutan, I get it completely. But look, anything we use, whether it's fish, whether it's oil, whether it's palm, whether it's dripping, it has an effect on the agriculture or the life cycle, whatever it may be, the environment is going to. The fact is that, with dripping, of course, it's a byproduct, but the cow still died. Yeah. So look, at the end of the day, there's always going to be some negatives. So you just got to pick the positives and run with them, really. So next question is from, you'll recognise this name, Mark, Daoud Salimi. So
yeah, I do.
He was on Triple Chat with us back in the days.
Right.
Yeah, he was always on there, just like we was.
Such a passionate,
yeah. And
articulate
he
fish
loves his
fry.
podcasts. He just every time I put a podcast out, he's straight out there messaging me straight away. And so his first question is, what do you think the worst fad in fish and chips currently is? Let's say all of the food industry. What's the worst fad? So Mark, you put your hands up in celebration. So go on.
Halloumi fries.
Really? Yeah. I'm not a fan of the fries, if I'm going to be honest. I get why people do them, but yeah, up front.
We've spent a long time convincing people, quite rightly, that a nice fat chip is not that unhealthy. It's in moderation as part of a healthy diet, healthy balanced diet. Why fry cheese? Not only why fry cheese, why fry a cheese that it belongs to the Greeks? Let us have it.
If you listen to my last podcast, that's a whole contentious issue.
There's only so much halloumi to go round. Put it in a sandwich with some lunza, some cucumber and tomato, and leave it alone.
I get where people are frying it in batter. As a veggie option, it's easy. Take it out of the fridge. As you know, halloumi can last for ages in there. So it's a cured product. So I get that. It's the fries. I don't. Yeah.
I'm right.
You are right. I think for me, it's probably munchie boxes. I keep seeing these shops. If I want a selection of food, I want to choose what items are in it. I don't want somebody else to force a box on me. And I just think, I know why shops are doing it. I think they're trying to appeal to the lad Bible culture and
hangover boxes.
Yeah, that's it. But I just think stay away from it and just do what you do well and stick at the quality. And
they would argue they do that well.
I'm teetotal, virtually teetotal. I'll raise a glass to the Queen. That's about it. So the appeal of a hangover box to me, and the calorific value, crikey.
Look, there's a market for that,
yeah.
and I don't think that's a fish and chip customer. I'm not being funny.
It's a dirty burger kebab shop.
Yeah, let's face it. Even the kebab shop looks at that and thinks, I ain't going down that low. And I think that's the difference. So I don't think we should worry about. I'm a big fan of just us doing our own thing. I really do think that. I think that we should just plough ahead, get the best product we can do, take all the crap out of it and just really sell on that. Like you said, market it well. I think that let people do these munchie boxes because you know why? It makes us look better all the time. Oh, look at that, it's just frozen crap out of the freezer that's been fried in some crappy oil at a low temperature mostly in some shitty old range. And you know what? If it cost them £9 to feed 4 people, it's their problem, innit? Yeah, that customer was never ours. Yeah. They weren't going to say, you know what? I fancy line caught haddock fried in natural batter mix with Lincolnshire or whatever, Maris Pipers from the Fens or whatever. They're not even on our radar. And I think the difference is, it's probably the difference between us and going to a Michelin star restaurant. I think, a Michelin star restaurant's not going to say, I don't know what those fish and chip shops do. I think we've just got to say there's a customer for everybody. And I don't think that's our customer.
Yeah. I agree with that. Yeah.
So I think let them go where they go. They just want to get full. And I get that. They just want to fill themselves up.
Leave our halloumi alone.
I can see another campaign coming out of the Mark Petrou camp. Yeah. So Mark, you really don't want to meet Razan Al-Sous, who I did a podcast with the other week, because she came from Syria a few years ago and had no money to her name, and now manufactures halloumi in Yorkshire. Yeah. Look at his face.
They're taking over.
Isn't it funny how you can just go off someone just like that?
So next question,
but
guys.
it's not halloumi, is it?
She calls it Yorkshire squeaky. Yeah.
Okay, I can live with that.
Yeah, she can have that.
Turn that into fries.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, next question, Dominic Houston. What advice would you give to shops struggling to attract customers with price increases? So what he's essentially saying, he's got price increases left, right and centre, but how can he keep going and getting new customers? What does he do?
That's a minefield. I think there's no one answer for any shop. I think you've got to try different things. As I said, different things work in different areas, but we've touched on home delivery, we've touched on, I know Dominic's got click and collect in his shop. I don't think he does delivery.
I don't know.
But you've just got to try different things. Stick at the quality end. That's what I'd always advise. Go for awards. Get involved in the industry.
I do know that he's in a very population, very small population. So maybe, this ain't specific advice, Dominic, you can take it if you want, but maybe something up his street might be deliveries. Because, I think when I looked once, that village has 1,400 population. Yeah. It's not a lot of people. And that's very specific. But, we'll answer it broadly. But I think in this specific case, maybe look how to broaden that horizon.
But rural people will travel. So, if you get a name for yourself, people do. It works in Wales. So look at where Penaluna's at. Yeah. It's not a big town, but they're a very busy shop. I think if you get the right name and enter the awards, it will boost your business.
I think for me, you can't attract customers overnight. You've really got to work on this. I've been in business 11 years, and it takes time. Like you don't just open the door and people do. I think that's the common misconception. Years ago, when our dads were in the business, they opened the door and customers just ran through straight away. And Fred Capel touched on this in his podcast. Like, there is a big difference today that now you need to mobilise social media. You need to. There's just so many things you've got to do just to get a barrier of entry. So that's my. But I think for me, it's building in that value for money all the time. And I think once people see that. That you're not cheap, but you're not expensive. You're not massive portions, but not small portions. You've got to hit that fine line all the time. And, so that's my thought on it. So, Mark?
Okay, so first of all, I have to say it would be very arrogant of me to say that I knew anybody's business better than them. And everybody's got different challenges. So I'm going to speak generally, not just aim this at Dominic. Mm-hmm. And I have spoken to Dominic. I touched already on how to generate more customers. It's a lot easier to get more of the customers that you're already making happy. So if you can identify what your happy customer is in terms of demographic, where they're coming from, how old they are, what their typical spend is, you're on the way. You're on the way to knowing how to find more. And I'm going to give you an example because it's the easiest way to demonstrate. If you were to write down your postcodes for your geographical area, let's say Federation HQ is LS6. So if your customers come in and at the end of each transaction you say to them, would you mind telling me what the first three letters of your postcode are? By the end of the month, you could say 30% of our customers come from LS6, 20% come from LS5. We're getting none from LS4. And what that information gives you is an opportunity to explore why they're not coming from there, or where we need to put our efforts to get more of the people we're already attracting. It takes away guesswork. Again, if you were to do the same with age, or you were to collate how much they're spending, then you can build a picture of where your customers are. So let's say, for example, you've discovered that most of your customers are between 40 and 60 years of age. There's no point in handing out flyers at the local nightclub. So doing market research is important, but it doesn't have to cost a lot. You just need to do your homework and find out what your happy customer currently looks like. And growing more of those, building a bigger number of those is a lot easier than adding new lines to your business to try and attract a new customer, because there's risk involved and there's cost involved. So if you can have more of the same, it's the cheapest, most direct route to growth. I think we can all agree with that. Yeah. So in terms of pricing increase, you've got to protect your margins. I talked about Mr. Tesco already. But the way that you do that is by having a well put together menu. And I talked about how we undersell the product that we want to sell with cheaper alternatives. So as an industry, we've done this really badly for many, many years. If we want to sell cod and chips, we offer fish cake and chips, or sausage and chips, or pie and chips, or anything and chips for less as an alternative. We need to have things on our menu that we may not even want to sell, but they're on there to do a job. For example, having a couple of bits of halibut in the freezer that will price fish and chips so much more than your cod and chips. It means that when you want to protect the margins on your cod, you put your halibut up, you put your more expensive items up first, and people can then come back down to cod and chips and perceive
as
it
opposed to looking at it as the high. I remember a few years ago, 5 years ago, you had ribs on the menu.
Yep.
And you said I hardly sell any, but it's there to make fish and chips look good.
A whole rack of ribs on at $12.99, and they're in the freezer. They take the same amount of time to cook as a haddock. Or a cod, and they're a bomb-proof, bulletproof product.
But for you didn't mind if you didn't sell them because it was just making fish look more appealing, price-wise.
Zero waste.
I picked up off market.
Yeah. So when it's time to put the price for your cod and chips up, then the ribs go up a quid too.
Yeah.
And what it does, keeps your fish and chips in the middle of your mix.
Yeah.
And when people come in, that helps. Another thing is how you present your product as well. We've got this great space above our frying ranges for selling, but what we tend to do is list our prices, which is and I see people come in time and time again, and they shake the coins in their pockets, and they hold out their hand, and they're looking at what they can buy, because by listing all your prices, you make price the primary decision maker. So what we need to do is we need to start being a little bit more skillful.
Well, if you go to a McDonald's and KFC or Burger King,
it's all pictures, it's all images.
95% of it is the burger or the drink or whatever it is they're trying to sell you, and then in the extra 4% is where the figure is.
Exactly.
And you think, and they've got that boring black and white sign on the left of every McDonald's, and it just has the prices.
The price list.
But I don't think. I think you're right. I think there is a massive emphasis in our industry on product and price.
There's a difference between telling somebody how much it costs and actually selling.
Yeah.
And I think we need to get better at selling.
Yeah.
And I always say use pictures of your own product.
Yeah.
And do bundles as well. I mean, there are things that are on my menu that are there because I actually want to sell fish and chips, but a pot of peas for £1 gives me margin to work with, and a can of drink for £1, fizzy pop. It's really what it means to me is 25 pence, but it gives me 75 pence of margin to play with. So if I do a meal where you get a side order and a can of drink, and you get £1 off, I'm still selling the thing that I want to sell. Yeah. So it's just about being smarter and actually using your menu to work for you rather than work against you. Once you've made all these adjustments and you know where you want to go out and get your customers from, you then have to think about, how do I attract those people in? And there's two clear lines to go down. One of them is advertising, and the other one is PR. The thing with advertising is you need to know where you're going, where you're going to try and attract people from. Because if you're on the back of a bus, or you're on a roundabout, or you're in a newspaper or a magazine, or on the radio, you need to be sure that that's hitting the target audience that you want to attract. So going back to the first thing I said about knowing who you want to attract, that's why that becomes important. The thing is with advertising is whatever vehicle or medium you use, that's never why people are looking at it or listening to it. People don't put on the TV for the adverts. They don't buy a newspaper for the adverts. They don't listen to the radio for the adverts. So it can be ignored, and people can reject it if the message isn't right, or you forget to put a map or all the right information in it. You can spectacularly fail, and it's very difficult to measure as well. Not only that, advertising has a cost.
Yeah.
That's why I always favour PR, because people buy a newspaper to read the news.
Yeah, exactly.
And because it comes from a third party, it's always believed and accepted. So if you're sponsoring a local football team and you're in the paper, you're generating goodwill, you're putting yourself in the minds of your community, and you could be reaching the people that you want to reach. So if you're winning an award or doing something for charity, so what I would say is put your energy and your effort into doing your homework, and then invest in creating the right impression of your brand through PR.
I think what is mostly important is what sits in the middle, and that's goodwill.
Yes.
I think, whether it's giving food for a charity event or whatever, I think it's the biggest thing.
You're better spending the money on food to give away than paying for it.
Yeah, of course. Food costs you less. So, but there was an interesting story about a chap called Danny Mayer, and he opens a restaurant in New York just before 9/11, and it was an Indian restaurant. Yeah, and literally overnight, the industry just flops for the Indian food. Yeah. Nobody wants to eat Indian food. 9/11, they're the enemy, And I was reading the book, and he was saying, you know what? I just went on a charm offensive. He had other restaurants that could hold him up, and he went out there and he was just giving food to events, whether it was charitable or something to do with 9/11. It was half price, quarter price. And what happened is slowly it turned around, But I think that goodwill not only takes longer to build, but also stays with you longer. Yeah. Advertising's quick. You know how many adverts people see today? Probably 30 adverts an hour, if not more. And that's if you've not even left the house. Yeah. If it's not on Facebook, it's on Twitter. If it's on a billboard, it's everywhere. So I think advertising has less reach now.
To be successful, you've got to saturate it.
Yeah. So
and people, like I said, can ignore it or reject it. The last point I was going to make with PR is, your own business. You can be really imaginative and creative with it. I don't just sponsor a local football team. If I'm going to sponsor a local football team, I spread the cost. I make the manager of the team receive the money from me weekly throughout the season previous to the season that I'm going to sponsor. So I don't stump up £500 for a kit. I give them £10 a week for 50 weeks for next season, because that spreads the cost across my business. Yeah. Not only that, each player on that team gets a yellow card, which gives them a discount. So I've got 11 people coming into the shop showing me a yellow card. So I'm getting some of that back as well. And we sponsor match balls, and we go down there and we actually get involved with the team. So, it's not just about putting your hand in your pocket. It's about being smart on how you do it and making it work for you.
Engage with the community.
Yeah.
We give out vouchers on home match days for half price portions of chips. So after the match, they can come at the chippy and get a bag of chips half price. I'm still bringing people into my shop by doing that. So
it's all about being part of that local community, isn't it?
Yeah. And it gives us an edge where the multiples can't do that. Our biggest strength is the fact that we've woven our way into the fabric of our own communities.
What I will say is the worrying thing is that the multiples are doing that. The woman who's got the lady who's got 16 McDonald's in my area. Every week, she's putting out a load of people and they're walking up and down the streets and they're picking up rubbish. Not just McDonald's rubbish, everyone's rubbish. And I thought to myself, when she told me, I was like, whoa. She's mobilising 10 or 15 people per restaurant and they're walking out there. And if we're not seen to be doing this, then we're also going to look bad as well. Anyone else, any independent, because the multiples are doing it. And more so McDonald's than others. McDonald's really embed themselves locally, and I think the minute you embed yourself locally in your local area, it just makes sense. And I think, I think that that's where we should worry, is that everyone else is doing it and we sometimes are not. And I think, but these ideas that you guys have both given are just fantastic. I think we should. Anything else you both want to add to that question?
All I will say is that my contact details, you get me on Facebook if you want an idea for a bit of PR. I've got folders of stuff I've done.
He probably has.
Just look, for example, a mountain bike. What we talking about? 120 quid.
Yeah, it's not a lot.
You do a spot the difference or a colouring competition with your local paper, and you put up the prize. The editor will be made up.
Yeah.
Give away a mountain bike. It costs you nothing, but you'll be in the paper 3 or 4 times, and then when you give the bike away, that's another photo opportunity. It's spread. It's very. There's so many things you can do.
It's too easy to get stuck in your business and think, well, it's not me. I can't change anything. It's the environment. But you've got to think about different ideas and just try everything you can to get out there.
Yeah, so true. Beniko Ziniu, do you think that fish and chips will still be a popular working class meal in 10 years? I think the quick answer to that is probably, because everything else is going to shift up with it at the same time. So I don't know what you two think.
Yeah, it's always been affordable food for the masses. It's going to continue to be so. And, it's woven its way into the heart of the nation. There might be less shops.
I agree with that, yeah. I think there'll be less shops. There were 35,000 in the 20s, weren't there? So, the people will travel for good fish and chips. So quality fish and chips will always be there. That's it. So that was a quick one,
That was a quick one. So next question, Daoud, silly me again. One of my questions is with the NFFF and the Fry Top 50 Quality Award. He's got them all mixed up, bless him. Which I do think are great things, if I'm honest. Do you think they push shops to do things that aren't necessary, like name tags? And that's an example. And do you feel they might make shops very samey, so quite homogenised? Do they want everyone to use dry white? Yeah, so we're saying there's some shops out there that would fry without dry white from wet, and there's shops in Scotland that do that, and they take it straight out of the barrel. So basically, overall question: does the competition push everyone to be the same?
Go on, Mark.
I'm going to answer this shortly. No, I don't think so. I think there's an accepted industry standard of best practice, and I think that's what's applied. And if you're not doing something that's best practice, maybe you should see the opportunity of entering as a way of plugging those gaps. I think the award recognises differences and celebrates differences, especially when you're innovating as well. Mm-hmm. It's a good way of pushing that cream to the top of the pint. But when it comes to best practice, I think that rule has to be applied, doesn't it?
Yeah, I agree with that. And at the end of the day, you don't have to do it. Mm-hmm. You don't have to use drought if you don't want to use drought, mm-hmm. but we recommend you do. Where it can be a little bit different is if somebody gets marked down for not offering a gluten-free option, because they've made that choice because it's not safe for them to do so. And I know that's been an issue in the last year's awards.
Okay.
And I think a bit of common sense, if you can't do it safely and you've made that decision, you've got the knowledge, so why should you be penalised?
There is just one thing I will add, is that these awards, they're not perfect, but they are the best thing we've got. And I think when you enter something like that, you have to accept that there's always going to be, one or two imperfections, one or two things that you moan about, but you've still got out of it more than you've put in. And I've not always won, and when I don't win, it doesn't happen very often. I live with it, and I take it on the chin. I learn from it, and if there's something that's really got your goat, they will listen. If you feel there's been a massive injustice, you can speak to them. And it may not change anything, but next year, live with it or don't.
Well, I suppose the fact is, we never know as entrants what the reason was for them to do a certain thing. We don't know. We think we know, but we don't know. And it's not a conspiracy. There's something valid there. So if we look at just do I have to use dry white? No, but if you show us that you can make great chips without dry white, then I'm sure you'll still get the marks.
You won't lose the points.
Yeah, you won't lose the points. And in Scotland they do butterflied fish, and they don't lose points. No one's telling them they have to do frozen at sea. And there's in the last few years, there's been shops that have won the competition that do frozen at sea, and others that do fresh.
I think the awards are a good way of steering the industry. So if we're trying to achieve something like, they'll talk about an environmental award, it leads people down that way, just with MSC and sustainability. And I think they're very important that we use the awards to guide the industry in a certain direction. But it doesn't mean everyone has to do it. It's what works for you.
So, guys, a few more questions from Dawood. So, after meeting so many successful people, what do you think they all have in common? And this specifically relates to people in our industry. So you two have met lots of successful people. Why is he smiling?
Money. They've all got the money. Pretty wives. I don't know. Pretty husbands.
I think they all want to constantly improve. I think they've got a desire to push themselves a bit further and just try new things and just be the best at what they do. And I think you'll always learn something new, and I think that's something that if you're willing to learn something, you're constantly thinking about what you're doing. You've got that drive to take things on.
Work ethic.
Yeah.
Work ethic, and those ethics sometimes can be perceived as being a little bit abrasive or hard. But you know what? They're all grafters. I've never met anyone who's done it from the top of the hill. They've been on the front line, on the coalface.
Yeah. And many have tried. It's not for a lack of trying. Everyone's tried to, but I think
it drags you back in.
It's particularly in this industry. When you become multi-site, you're still doing the hours, and if you can get away with it, you'll still do some shifts on the range as well. That's it. And they continue to learn. Nobody I've ever met who's successful has closed their mind to learning. They're still every day's a school day. They're still learning. They're still applying themselves and pushing. Apart from me, I'm getting old.
But they still make mistakes as well, and then they pick themselves up, get on with it again. It's. The worst decision you can make is not making a decision at all. You've just got to. If it's wrong, then you've learned. So it's good for you.
So another question from Dawood: do you think the NFF president, in brackets, I do think Andrew Crook is great. Got a bit of a fan there.
Does.
You got a bit of a fan there, mate.
Everybody does.
But do you think they should own or run a shop so they can see the problems in shops face? Or should it be someone with more free time who can give more time? So we'll throw this one straight over to you.
That'll be me again.
But I don't mind going first.
No, I'll go with it. Yeah, we used to have a general secretary who now currently works for us as business development manager, and they essentially run the organisation day to day. But we changed that a couple of years ago, and I think it's right that it's run by fish friers. I think we've got a knowledge of the industry that nobody that's employed in it could have. The only other way you could go is a retired fish fryer, then being general secretary or full-time managing director or chairman or whatever. But are they current? I think you need current people, and it's at the moment we've got a very good board. They're very active, they're respected in the industry, they've got a lot to offer, and they have got a bit of free time. I probably do a little bit more than I should do. I probably sacrifice a bit of time in my business. I certainly sacrifice any downtime, but I'm lucky at the moment. I'm single, I've no kids. I can give that time.
Was that an advert?
No, certainly not. I haven't got time either for any. So
single and ready to mingle.
I spend all my time with fish friers. So, but I think it's important you've got that knowledge of the industry, and I think it definitely has to be somebody who has that inside knowledge. Whether that could come from the supply side, that's another question as well. But the organisation isn't the National Federation of Fish and Chips, it's the National Federation of Fish Friers. And I think we've got to preserve that. I'm not saying it won't change in the future. There's some great candidates out there. I think Paul Williams is somebody who's got a lot of passion for the industry, and I think
you've made some valid points, and I think that it works both ways in my eyes. And I think that if there wasn't a fish fryer at the helm, people would probably have an issue. But in my head, I have often thought, wouldn't it be good if, let's say, the regional directors were advisors and there was someone at the top that wasn't from the industry, but more from the lobbying industry, a lobby group, for argument's sake. If you look at like FSB and NCAS and all that, I don't think they're, one's not a caterer and one's not a small business owner. They are, So there is an argument there. But what I will say is, the model we have at the moment works. I don't see that it's broken. I don't know what you think. Well, he's smiling again. He's smiling again.
It worries me that.
Go on.
I think it depends who the president is.
Yeah, exactly. It does. Yeah, because we could easily employ someone that's not very good. So
not because he's in the room, but I think we've got a really safe pair of hands.
So what you're saying is we should think about it when Andrew's gone.
No, what I think is everybody should get behind this guy here because. Since he jumped into that seat, he's done so much good in such a short amount of time. He's everything's pulling in the right direction, and that's not because I've known you and I've known your dad, and we go back. The fact of the matter is, there's a good vibe coming out of Federation HQ, and to be fair, the previous guy started that. Big thing for me to say, isn't it? But credit where it's due. Greg did a superb job of laying the foundation stones there as well. So,
you're up, mate.
Yeah, I'm okay.
I'm very lucky. I mean, I've worked with some great people in the industry, and I really have. And there's some that aren't involved with the NFF now at a board level that are still there at the other end of the phone. And I think we're in a good place, and I think we've got some good people coming through. So I don't think now's the time to be looking at changing the way we work. I
don't think anyone was advocating the change. It was just more looking at business models. I think more so just broadly. But yeah, no one's trying to do that.
Richard Branson doesn't fly his own airplanes, but if he did, he'd probably be able to relate to the pilots a bit better. At the end of the day, Andrew runs a successful shop and is the president of the NFF, and that on its own should be applauded. But there's no compromise in what Andrew does. He does as good a job whilst running his business, probably a better job than if somebody only did it.
Yeah,
was only the president. You wear your pants on the outside and do both extremely well.
Well, the thing is, you've got to be accessible 24 hours a day if you need to be. Thankfully, I don't get many calls during the night, but. Yeah, you've got to be there at the weekends. A lot of media stories break at weekends.
Yeah,
I've done interviews with my headphones on while I've been frying on a Friday night with newspapers, and I don't know if you get that 100% with an employee because you tend to have that office mentality.
Some radio stations want to hear the fish and chips frying in the background while you're talking as well.
Yeah.
So, next question. Do you think a lobby group or just something like the NFFF, but for food hospitality, can be created? So I think they're probably thinking wider. And your hand's gone up straight away. So.
I think it's already there.
Yeah, I was just going to say.
we were asked to join the British Takeaway campaign probably 2 years ago. And this is something that's funded by one of the aggregators we were talking about. And I'm not giving them a plug, they get enough advertisement about. Just eat.
You can say their name. Like, no one, say their name. Like.
And they're doing it for the right reasons. I know they've had a lot of flack recently in media because of standards, and they're working on that themselves. But
that's their internal business. That's their problem, isn't it? Yeah.
They've got the interest of the takeaway industry at heart, and I think it's growing week on week. We've just got a new secretariat, which is a company called Headland, who are very proactive. I'm actually meeting with them next Thursday. And the people around that table, the first meeting I attended, I was there with Craig Moore as well. There's a guy there from Curry Life who said, well, there's 2,000 Indian takeaways had to close down because they can't get staff. And me and Craig probably looked at each other and thought, well, that's not a bad thing, is it, for us? You know? But the more time you talk to them, we've all got the same problems. And I think it's too big for just one industry to take on. I think working together, we've got more of a voice. We've already had a win on public health issues. I don't know if you saw in Propel today and in the Sun at the weekend, there's a story about calories, and I think we're going to avoid having to pay for nutritional testing on every product in the shop. And this is all coming from working together.
Yeah.
So I think we've got that organisation. You've got representation though, which is the NFFF. We're a very, very key part of it. Hugh Mantle, one of our directors, is also the chairman of the advisory group for T-levels, which is the new qualification. It's like a vocational A-level. You know, we're playing a very active role in it, and it's been a good thing. It's been set up with the right intentions. We've got the right people around the table. UK Hospitality attended as well, so we've got the weight of 90,000 businesses there, and that's something that government will listen to.
Mark?
I have nothing to add.
Yeah, I think you've covered it, most of that. So, yeah, I think you've nailed it. Next question. Jihan Oktem. So for me, work-life balance is really important. Whether you own a business or are managing one, what technologies can be used or are available back office, front of house to provide significant time benefits and efficiencies? What do you guys think about this?
Well, I like my gadgets, but your gadgets will make your job easier, but you're still going to be there yourself. And I don't think there's... You can do the little thing. I mean, I know Gian has staff in the shop as well.
Yeah.
You know, you can speed up the stuff you do out of the shop, but I do think you've got to spend time in your shop. So it's a difficult one, and I have no work-life balance either. So it's not. I'm probably not the best place to answer it, but you know, I do think there's technologies there that make things easier and improve quality, but I still think you'd need to put the hours in. That's it.
Mark?
It's a very broad question. Certainly, the amount of bureaucracy and the requirement to provide paper trails and evidence and to demonstrate due diligence and all of that can become quite overwhelming for a small business. And there are more and more electronic ways to overcome that and to go cloud-based and that. And it will prompt you and hold your hand and show you how to do that effectively and efficiently. But again, there are costs that go with that. So, yeah, I mean, there are always innovative ways coming to the market. For me, you have to decide what you want to achieve before you go down any of those roads. When I wanted to grow my business, and I grew from 1 to 6 shops, centralising my prep, having high efficiency pan technology, they were the things that enabled me to do that, to maintain the quality of my product, to reduce the opportunity for weaknesses or failings in the quality across my business, and being able to produce consistent quality product and service. They were the key drivers for me. And when it comes to recording stuff, I never went digital. I maybe cut down a few more trees than I should have done because I had paper records but that that suited me. But times are changing, So yeah, I mean there are. I couldn't say one specific thing. You know, but there are a lot of technologies out there.
I think within a few years we're just going to have a lot of software that all bolts on.
Yeah.
And it's just all going to help each other. So if it's, for example, like a check it type software, and I think your invoicing is going to get scanned directly and go straight to your software. And I think we're just going to be at that stage where a lot of this, the manual labour is still going to be there because someone still needs to physically check it. Someone needs to go to the lorry to check the order for the pies or whatever, check the temperatures. So that's always going to be a thing. I just think that it's probably all going to shift online. And I wonder if you'll be walking around with like an iPad type device, just tapping it in, scanning, taking photos and so on.
See, I'm that middle generation. I'm not the swipe a finger order from the sofa generation. I'm you know, like I said, I've not grown up in this industry. I've grown old in it, and I'm not at the sharp end. I see it. And what I think to it is, well, what happens when there's a power cut, and which is outdated, and I have to accept that as one of my limitations. Yeah. I don't really want to get on. I don't want everything cloud based.
There's a cost to it as well.
There is. I mean, cost is a factor. It's a real factor. But also, I like to have my foot up my arse's staff. My staff's arse. Okay. It's pub time, isn't it? I like to be able to say, "Have you done this? Show me you've done this." And you know, and I like to go back and check it. And I've probably only got 30 years to live. I don't want to spend it on a laptop checking the work that my staff have done. But that's me. Yeah, that's me. It's not. It may not be the right thing to say, but it's the truth. For me.
Very good. Next question. Nearly at the end. Specifically, what do you both see as the greatest challenges moving forward? So choose one each. We've touched on quite a few, but what's the greatest challenge?
I think the biggest hurdle we face is people perceive it as a cheap meal. I know we've said it's meals for the masses, but fish isn't a cheap product. It's the last hunted commodity. It's something that people risk their lives to go and catch, and I think we need to change people's perceptions of fish and celebrate fish and chips. You know, it is a great meal. We've got a great product. We're not talking about ripping people off, but I think we need to command a fair price for it. People will pay £9 for a pizza, 20 quid if it's one of the big national chain. I think there's somewhere in between where fish and chips should be. And I think that extra little bit would make a big difference where it comes to employing staff and rewarding your staff for the work they do. They work bloody hard in a fish and chip shop. You know, and the public sometimes look down. I think we've changed it somewhat. Nicer looking shops and more professional shops. I think we've changed that perception of working in a greasy, old-fashioned fish and chip shop to a certain extent. But I think we need that influx of money, or something moving on VAT, something to help us take fish and chips from where it is now to where it needs to be in the next 5, 6, 7 years.
Mark?
If I could only say one thing, it would be staff margins and market share. There isn't just one thing, but I think you know, Andrew's made the most important point. I think is public's perception of the brand, the umbrella brand. But there are always going to be staff challenges. We're always, all the time that we're on the coalface, we're going to struggle to put our prices up without feeling the lashback, whereas other people don't. So I think you've got to divorce yourself from that, and not allow the one person that moans persuade you that the other 20 or 30 that aren't happy, and make sure you fight for your market share to grow your market share, because the customers are out there. They do want to eat. They want quality food, and at a price that they're happy to pay. You know, so
brilliant.
That's it.
So. Go on.
No. It sums it up well.
Yeah, so I think this question is probably going to roll off the back of that one. So Lauren Hiller from MSC, if there was one thing you'd change about the industry, what would it be and why?
It's great that we're all individuals, but there is an attitude out there of, I'm all right, I don't need to think about anybody else. It surfaces every so often with things like National Fish and Chip Day, where shops say, well, I'm busy enough on a Friday. It's not just about that, it's about working together. And all right, you might be on the coast, you might be busy in the summer on a Friday, but if people were doing a bad job in the the suburban shops all winter, people might not come to you for fish and chips because they might not like fish and chips. It's about all working together to preserve the brand of fish and chips, the umbrella brand, as we keep talking about. And I think we have got the entrepreneur. Sometimes people say, entrepreneur, it's like a swear word. Oh, I'm not getting involved. I think we've got a history where the organisation probably wasn't as relevant to the industry as it is now. It's something we're trying to change, but I just wish everyone would get together and just start working towards a common goal. And that's
You'd like to see more solidarity.
Yeah. And then keep your individuality, but let's all push the industry on. Let's. I don't think everyone's going to survive. It's going to be a tough few years. I think we have to realise that some shops will fall by the wayside, but by working together and sharing ideas, and we've got a better chance of surviving. And I think for me, that's the most important thing.
Good question.
It's a brilliant
answer.
It's a brilliant sentiment, really is. The damage has already been done for me. If there was one thing I could have changed, I would probably go back 20 years, and I would say anyone applying for permission for a chip shop is not allowed to open within a mile of another chip shop, or maybe even further, because you don't put two schools next to each other, two hospitals next to each other. You put them where they're needed, and I think planning rules were applied badly over the last couple of decades, because they just wanted shops full. They wanted the business rates, they wanted the council tax. There wasn't common sense applied, and there are too many chip shops that are near to each other. And I've felt that personally. I've felt it. I've had shops open near to me because I'm busy, because I'm successful, and they've run their business in a different way to me. They've not sourced their fish responsibly. They've sourced it as cheap as they can. They've not been sensible with their portions, and that's not sour grapes, because it's business. I accept it. I have no problem with it. But if I could have changed it and gone back 20 years, I would have lobbied central government to change their national planning policies so that geographically there was some common sense applied to planning. That's something I would have changed 20 or 30 years ago, and I'm sure there are listeners out there that would agree with that. Just as I think, like I said, the damage is done, and there are empty shops coming all the time now because a lot of people are pulling out of the high street. You're getting ghost kitchens opening, and I will mention this. I know we're a bit short on time, but I know of one particular really good shop that I visited recently. I won't give away who it is, and their biggest competition, they're losing customers, and they asked me to go down and tell them how and why. And I said, well, who's your biggest competition? And you can find them on Google Earth, and they're a very big brand of fish and chip shop that they're losing out to, but they don't exist. They're not in the high street. You can order their food online, and you can get it delivered in branded uniforms from them, but they don't have a shop, they don't have a counter, they don't have a presence, and this shop is losing quite a lot of its turnover to I'll name it, losing that business to Harry Ramsden's. Harry Ramsden's haven't even got a shop in their town, but you can get Harry Ramsden's fish and chips. It's coming from the back of a Chinese takeaway that's paid Harry Ramsden's to brand and to sell on their behalf. And this is going to happen more and more. This might be new news to some people that are listening, but this shop is losing business to a chain, to a Harry Ramsden's outlet that doesn't exist in the real world. It's only available online. So
scary, isn't it?
It's scary, and it's coming. But a plan and policy like that would never have allowed it. So you don't know where your customers. If you're losing customers, don't think it's because you're too expensive. Don't. That's a big mistake. Your product is probably extremely cheap compared to many other takeaway meals. I mean, look at what people will pay for a coffee. Look at what people will pay for a boiled rice, and just have some confidence in what you're doing and belief in what you're doing. But if you're losing customers, you need to figure out why and be proactive. You can get them back. You just need to just need to keep at it.
Just change something and try different things to get them through the door.
Yes.
Or find out what it is as well. Find out what's causing people to not come. And, you know, I think that rather than assuming, like Mark says, don't just think it's because I'm expensive.
It's not. It's not. It's chances are it's not because you're expensive. It's just you're not selling the product the way somebody wants to buy it. And I've said time and time again, success doesn't come from selling what you want to sell. It comes from selling what people want to buy. And if you're not embracing those 3 different generations and selling those 3 different ways, chances are you're missing out on potential business that could be yours. You don't have to deliver. You can still have an app-based service that's collection only.
That's what I do in my shop, and it works well.
Yeah. Fantastic. Next one, Lauren again. What's a great bit of advice that someone gave you when you began in the industry, open a takeaway, restaurant? How did this alter your outlook? So who wants to go first? Shall I go first?
You go first.
So when I first started what was the batter company, which is now Sarah's, not a good friend, but I'd say someone I can pick up the phone and talk to. But Michael Tzerky, who is
my wife calls him Mike the Turkey.
Yes, Mike's the chief executive of Shire Foods in Warwick, Leamington, and he said to me, I think you must have realised I was completely out of my depth and delusional and mental. And what the hell are you doing? And he says to me, make sure you know that blood is the cash flow of the business, and without it, the business will seize up. And since then, I've always just made sure that I've always had good cash flow. I've always really tried to, rather than having that bank account that's peaks and troughs or feasts and famines. I've always tried to make sure that, my bank account, the business bank account, I wish the other one was the same. But yeah, always make sure that that's really important. I think, and another thing, if I were a bit of advice I'd give to somebody, if you're selling something, it's not yours until the money's in the bank. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people think, just sold £1,000 worth of something. Yeah, well, get paid, because that's the important thing. So that's my.
Well, I had 2 things. A financial advisor said to me when I first went self-employed, "Welcome to second-class citizenship," which always stuck with me, because end of the day, you don't get looked after. But my dad always used to say, "You're only as good as your last portion of chips." So, and that's something that, no matter what award you win, what your standing is in the industry, you've still got to look after what you're doing every time.
Mark?
Never eat yellow snow. Okay, so nothing springs. I've picked up so much good advice, but I'm going to give you one because I rarely acknowledge him. I'm going to give you 2. Both of them. I'm going to give you 2 because I have to. One of them's Bill Shaw.
Okay.
And Bill Shaw said to me once, "If you don't tell, you don't sell." And him and his wife Jean were outstanding at raising the profile of Florigo in its early days. And if Bill got lost on his way home from work, that was news. They told everyone. And so if you don't tell, you don't sell. So I credit Bill Shaw for that.
But just before we carry on, I think that's one guy in this industry that just does not get enough credit.
Yeah,
and me and him have been at opposite ends because
we have to.
Yeah, but, there was the time when I had to duck for my life because he nearly punched me. But that guy, seriously, I think he was really instrumental in pushing this industry forward.
Yeah,
he probably wasn't even listening to this, so we're not blowing smoke up his ass because he probably will not even know.
No.
But yeah, that is a guy that I think that deserves.
And a proper character.
Yeah, definitely, exactly. And not afraid to be himself. That's the other thing, not afraid to be himself. But he really pushed the industry forward massively, I think.
The next one's also from Florigo, and that's Robert Fury. Because in 2008, financially, I was on my arse. I was in straits. I had a business that was hemorrhaging a lot of money, and it was pulling my whole business under. During the credit crunch, I had more money going out of my business than I had coming through it. I was asset rich. I was worth a lot of money, but my business was being choked of cash flow, and it goes back to what you said. And Robert Fury said to me one day, he said, "If you've got a hole in your pocket, sew it up. Don't keep putting money in your pocket if you've got a hole in it. Sew it up." And it saved me. It literally saved me from losing everything. And that one bit of advice was absolutely pivotal, and I have personally thanked him many times over the years. But I credit Robert Fury for that. That was at my lowest point. he didn't put his hand in his pocket for me, but he gave me some advice which actually transformed.
It's Rob Fury. He won't put his hand.
No. Short, long, deep pockets, short arms. But no, I credit him for that.
I hear his pockets end where his socks begin.
Yeah. But you're right. I think also one from me is that goodwill is the lubricant of small business, and you've got, if you want to get the best out of your staff, you want to get the best out of your suppliers, and you want to get the best out of your customers, cultivate relationships. And if you want to get the best out of the industry, it goes back to what you've said, Andrew. Cultivate relationships. Be a part of it. Be interested in your staff. Don't just expect them to turn up and graft. Taking them out for a meal once a month is a lot cheaper than a pay rise. But it goes a lot further as well.
Yeah.
Actually, genuinely, if you take care of your staff, they'll take care of you.
It's not just staff, though, is it? It's like if we look at our industry, or the fish and chip industry specifically, if you look after the driver, give them a can, give them a coffee, give them a sausage and chips. They're the ones that are going to bend over backwards to deliver anything to you. When
that's where I got my manager from, one of the suppliers, and without Naomi, I better give her a name check.
It's nice to be nice.
Yeah.
And what did it cost you? Well, the sausage and chips with a can is probably with a can maybe $1.50. We throw that away all day long in our daily lives. So I think the one part of our business where we can be less business-like is in this instance. And it's don't measure the cost of that, because that goodwill
it's an investment,
not
a cost.
An investment. Yeah, exactly. And it's really going to help you, because when I was in the shops, and we always used to look after the drivers, always, because they're the ones that are going to get you out of the mess, always.
They know everything,
and they know everything.
Going on,
Exactly. So but the last question, guys, and then we can go get something to eat, because I'm starving now. And I'm probably pretty thirsty. I can talk, and I've never spoken this much before. So last one from Lauren Hiller. Do you believe that sustainability is a key aspect of the industry? If yes, why is it important to care?
Sustainability is not just fish.
No, of course not. The whole thing. Yeah, the whole thing, yeah.
I think nowadays, not only have we led the way with sustainable fish, but I think it's going to make commercial sense to operate in a sustainable manner. And I know Callum's put composting in at home, hasn't he? I think we need to look at what we're throwing away, because just like with petrol guzzling cars, you're taxed out of the equation. The same thing will happen with a business and waste. We need to minimise waste. We need to look at how we operate, how we can reduce food waste, because that's a big issue. I think there's quite a lot of chips thrown away each day by the industry. I just think it's going to make commercial sense, as well as being easier on your conscience. You're operating in an environmental way. One, it'll be good for business, but two, it'll reduce your costs. And I think it's going to be more and more important in the next 10 years.
I think the word sustainable is very broad. And one of the conversations I had with Lauren is, it's all right saying where we get our fish from, but no one thinks about how long it's been in the freezer, or the plastic that we use. And I'm sure, and now people are starting to think about those things. And then if you look at potatoes, does anybody look at the price of potatoes? Is it sustainable that it goes from £2 a bag to £10 a bag? There's no sustainability there either. So I think for me, the word sustainable is so broad, and we need to look at it for every product that we buy. And I think do many people look at where something comes from? I don't think they do. Do many people, and they should, but we all want to know where our potatoes come from, but no one ever asks where the wheat comes from. And I think as any industry does, we generally look at what's mostly important and then look away at the other stuff. And I think every business should have a set of ethics that they work from. And we're starting to see a lot more restaurants and fish and chip shops and wider restaurants that are really starting to put ethics, at the beginning of their business, right next to the menu. And I think, you see it with the likes of Pret a Manger, and you see it with, there's another one that comes to my mind. Not if you look at Innocent Drinks, they really put forward ethics and fair trade use and everything. So I wonder if that's where our industry starts to go as we get more niche. Yeah.
Yeah. There are two sides to the sustainability subject, if you like. One of them is the moral aspect, and the other is the financial. And I think we have a responsibility to future generations and to our customers to make all the right decisions for them. And from a financial perspective, it can be a really powerful thing to do as well. So why not be sustainable. It's not a case of can you afford to. It's can you afford not to. We have to do it for the planet, but we can also do it for our bottom line as well.
Well, it's a way to create loyalty, isn't it, with customers?
Yeah, so. If you make the right decisions for your customers, you take away the need for them to look elsewhere.
Well, look, guys, that was our last question, and I think we did really well. And I think people may have to pause this one and do something else for a bit because.
Was it heavy going?
No, I don't think it was heavy. What do you think? Right. No, I think it was good. I think anybody in our industry will listen to that and think they relate. So
I'm going to wee like a racehorse.
I thought you were looking twitchy.
Look, guys, let's end it here then, because Mark needs to go to the toilet. So yeah, guys, thanks for your time, and we'll pack away and go get some lunch. Catch you in a bit.
Thank you.
Cheers.
I hope you all enjoyed all the questions and the answers and just a little bit of banter. But yeah, send us all your feedback. We absolutely love it. So we hope you don't mind, but share the hell out of it. Share it with your friends. Share it on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, wherever you're sharing things. But thank you so much for your support. It means so much.